The Sellersville Museum Committee was formed in 1974. The Storehouse of Heritage has moved into the historic former Borough Elementary School on Church Street. A volunteer authority staffs the House of Treasures. We'll go inside and view some of that.
Good afternoon. I'm Florence Wilhelm. I'm the Secretary of the Sellersville Historical and Achievement Authority. Here we have some very old dishes, Rose of Sharon pattern, and they're from the 1700s. And over here we have an ice box, which most people had before the electric refrigerator came out. Put the ice in here. As it melted, it went into a pan underneath, which they had to remember to empty or they'd have water all over the floor.
I'm Leonard Knapp. I'm also a member of the museum committee here. The table that we have here, I understand, was made, or at least the legs of the table, come from a grand piano. The table has quite a lengthy history to it. I don't know all the details on it, but it's been around for quite some time. But on the table we have a couple other interesting articles that we find quite interesting, and I think perhaps other people will also. An old set of ivory dominoes, which we have been led to believe are more than 150 years old, although, again, a lot of these things we have to kind of take other people's word on it, because certainly most of us haven't been around long enough. And a couple of pieces of tramp art. Now, the tramp art is especially interesting to us in Sellersville for several reasons. Here we have a product of Sellersville's cigar industry a few years ago. In fact, this particular box comes from the Cressman cigar factory, which is right up here on the upper end of town. Back in the early days of this century and the later part of the previous century, a lot of itinerant hobos, tramps, would travel on the railroads, and they had kind of a little settlement down in the south end of town where they would congregate. Oftentimes, just to while the hours away and pass the time, they would do all kinds of whittling and wood carving, and essentially what they did in this case was take a cigar box, carve out and whittle out little pieces of wood to superimpose on it and fasten in place to make a rather decorative, unusual object. And so the fact that it most likely was made right here, first of all, we know that the box came from Sellersville, and we're reasonably certain that the work itself was done down in this little section called Hobo at the south end of town. Another piece of tramp art that we have in our collection is a picture frame, and again, this was made by little pieces of wood, each carved and cut individually and put together and kind of interlocked, and then a picture put inside. And it's a little flimsy, but when it's mounted and hung, it's a rather attractive thing. These are just a few of the things we have here at the Sellersville Museum. We've been gathering things not only from Sellersville itself, but from the surrounding area and other things that would pertain to the period of time from the late 1800s through the early part of the 1900s.